Welcome to From the Desk, an official podcast of Bethel Community Church. My name is Solomon Mochpow, and this is Leonard Tavernelli, and we both get to serve as pastors here at Bethel. And Leonard, this last week you preached through Ecclesiastes 4, which apparently no one really agrees on what the whole unit of thought is.
Yeah, no, there's a disagreement among commentaries as to where to break things up and how it breaks up and everything.
Yeah, well, I think you helped us and you preached the regular division that all of us have in our Bibles. And I think
that's because I think it's correct.
Yeah. Now, of course, when you preach a passage like this, you can't cover everything, all the things that are there in the text. Are there just a couple observations or things that had to get left out of the sermon that would be helpful for us to know?
Yeah, so I think part of the way that we understand what's happening within all of chapter 4, rather than it just being these just diverse, very broken up, just that that people may think there's no train of thought here at all, but to see that there is, that it's a cohesive passage. In verses 7 through 12, which is really at the heart of the passage, he really is almost doing a pun on the words 1 and 2 or 2 and 2nd, in that he brings it up at least 5 times, according to my account. Where he says, "Again I saw vanity under the sun," verse 7, "one person who has no other." That word other there is literally second. Either son or brother, yet there is no end to all his toil, and his eyes are never satisfied with riches. He never asks, "For whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure?" Verse 9, "Two are better than one." Again, you jump down to verse 10. "One will lift up his fellow, but woe to him who's alone when he falls and has not another," has not a second. And so throughout this section, he's playing on that idea of not being alone, but having someone else. And that's really what we see going on throughout the passage, all the way back to verse 1, where there's oppressors. The problem is there's no one to comfort those who are oppressed. If we're just living for ourselves, if we're isolating ourselves from others, then life doesn't go as it should. And so he's showing us a better way. Literally, the Hebrew is tov, a good way. And so that, I believe, is what's going on here. It's to be found in having others. And so it's just good to be able, obviously, that doesn't show up well in English.
Right.
Just how it's translated doesn't translate well. But even like a study Bible might draw attention to that and to see, oh, okay, this is what's going on here.
Right, and even helpful to know that as he's making his point, he's using literary tools to do so in ways that sometimes we can't always see in our initial reading in the English text. Yeah,
but very helpful in understanding what's going on. Another observation, I guess it's something that people, some commentators brought up. Verses 13 through 16, some people take it as if he's talking about Joseph from the book of Genesis. Joseph, the son of Jacob, grandson of Isaac, great-grandson of Abraham. Specifically because some of the language here fits with the story of Joseph. So Joseph, of course, is a youth when he goes into Egypt, when he's sold into slavery. He goes from prison and poverty to the throne. When it talks about here, all the living who move about under the sun are with him. They're coming to him. He's leading them. That's very similar to Genesis 41:57 that talks about how all the world comes to Joseph due to the famine. And of course, you get to the end, verse 16, those who come later will not rejoice in him. We see that, of course, in Exodus chapter 1, verse 8, that Pharaoh arises who forgets about Joseph, doesn't remember him. And so there's interesting connections there that we can see.
I think you're convincing me.
But I actually don't think that's what's going on. They're interesting, but I think he's speaking more hypothetically here, and that's the better way to take it than that he's specifically thinking of Joseph. Now, maybe
it's a template.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he just has it in mind because, of course, I believe, whether this is Solomon or somebody else, he's clearly well versed in the Bible. That comes so clear as we'll get into chapter 5, verses 1 through 7. But I don't think he is intentionally telling us, pointing us back to Joseph or something.
Right. Yeah, maybe at most it's like a common trope for the Hebrew mind to think of that. And
Yeah, so we just have to be careful that we don't read something into the text that's just not really there.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful. Okay, so you were getting at how this text, in your sermon this last Sunday, how this text is pointing us towards cooperation rather than isolation.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of ways in which our world, sometimes literally, tries to live out this kind of cooperation. Could you help us maybe understand a bit how maybe this kind of cooperation that Ecclesiastes is calling us to ultimately falls short in the ways that the world seeks to implement it, and maybe what it even points to?
Yeah, and so we shouldn't be surprised that the world wants to experience the very things for which God created us, that there's this inner longing for us to see, one united humanity. I think God created us that way in the garden,
right?
And so we shouldn't be surprised about that and a longing for it and a wanting to return to it. I mean, even with the Olympics going on, there's everybody coming together, and so it's this. Okay, what's uniting the world? Well, it's sports. Well, not really. Somebody's going to win a gold medal, and everybody else just isn't in the event. So you're going to be saying, hey, this one nation. You're looking at nations, what they get. Gold, silver, bronze versus other nations. So it both unites and doesn't. And of course, it only comes along so often. It only unites us so often, and really, it fails to unite us. But there's really today, in some areas, or in some folks, a push toward the ideology of globalism. And so, in globalism, what they're wanting to see, and I don't think the desires are necessarily bad. I think there's good to say, hey, let's consider other people too, not just ourselves. There's a desire to see a unity and a uniting of societies, of finances, economics, things like that. Even politically. I'm not going to. Normally, you have globalism contrasted with nationalism. I'm not going there at all, and I'm certainly not getting into any of the weird conspiracy theories that are out there. What I do want to recognize is globalism is doomed to fail. It will not succeed. I really think it points us back to even Genesis 11 and the Tower of Babel, where God separated out peoples. And so there is within the Bible this longing for peoples to be back together, but that was a judgment on people because we were doing it for our own interests,
right,
rather than for the worship of God. Well, God gives us in Genesis 12 his solution. His name is Abraham. Ultimately, because it's in Abraham that Christ will come, all the nations of the world will be blessed.
Right.
And it's Christ who is uniting us and bringing us back together. And he does so by his Spirit. So that's why you come to Acts 2, and they're all speaking the different languages, proclaiming the gospel, and the nations are starting to come together in Christ.
Right. It's a reversal of Babel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Likewise, Ephesians 2 talks about the church is one new man, uniting Jew and Gentile, all the peoples of the world. Or you go to Revelation 7 and you see gathered around the throne all the peoples, tribes, languages, nations of the world, all united. Well, how are we united? We're united in Christ, worshiping God by the Spirit. And so globalism is doomed to fail because it does not come under the lordship of Christ. It intentionally even isn't.
Right.
That's where the church, as I tried to point out in Ecclesiastes 4, where it's leading us, it's the church who, in whom we should be united under Christ and by the Spirit who unites us.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful. And I think sometimes even like the best that like our secular world can really give us is a sense of wanting to unite around unity or unite around a common humanity.
Right.
Which is, there's a shadow of what's actually there, but without the substance of Christ, we really can't, it's a faux unity.
Yeah, needless to say, there's still going to be wars all the way until Christ returns. Why? Because people aren't going to cooperate together. There's always going to be people who are saying, no, I'm going to do things my way. The United Nations can't overcome that. It's only Jesus who ultimately does.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful in understanding that this kind of cooperation that we see in Ecclesiastes 4 that we are made for, in a sense, is only inside the new humanity of the church.
Yes.
Which I thought your applications at the end on Sunday, even in how we relate to one another in the church, I think was helpful. Well, we sang a song that I thought was really fitting to close our worship gathering. We sang, "My worth is not in what I own," which I think is an older hymn. I don't actually know when it was written, but
so the Gettys wrote it with Graham Kendrick. It's not that old.
Okay, so it's actually not that old. But I thought it was really fitting hymn. Could you help us understand that hymn in light of all the things that we've been talking about?
Yeah, so in light of what we read in Ecclesiastes 4, what a fitting hymn it is, that ultimately our worth is found in Jesus Christ. It talks about, my worth is not in skill or name. Boy, that talks about that, verse 4. In win or lose, in pride or shame, it's in the blood of Christ that flowed at the cross. So we rejoice in our Redeemer. He's the one who alone can satisfy our souls. I don't know if they had Ecclesiastes in mind when they were writing the song, but they sure may well have. I won't boast in wealth or might, in my fortune or whatever. Human's wisdom, the human wisdom's fleeting light. I'll boast in knowing Christ. And so I'm both. I have worth. I have dignity because I'm created in the image of God. Mm-hmm. And I have worth. Christ came to die for me because of, God chose me before the foundation of the earth. But there's also this, I'm completely unworthy of it. It's all of grace. It's not something I can in any way earn. Mm-hmm. And so I think in that way, it really is a good conclusion, summary of much of what we see here in Ecclesiastes 4. Ultimately, it's not by anything that we're going to do, which is going to be hevel. It's going to be in vain, empty. Yeah. That's all from God's grace. That's where true meaning and satisfaction comes from.
Yeah. I mean, it is amazing when a song like that really does, it is the gospel move from the text. Mm-hmm. To be like, our worth is not in anything that we do or accomplish, but ultimately in Christ.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for arranging service as you did, and
appreciate it. Rajwell, you did a great job.
Yeah. Well, church, we're so glad that you joined us on this episode of From the Desk, and we hope to see you and worship with you this coming Sunday. God bless.